But such ages of continual food-bearing weary the earth, and upon the face of this once young and fertile island, the furrows of exhaustion had begun to appear. Gradually, the trees and bushes that would hold the soil in place had been consumed to build ships or palaces or to feed the peasants' fire. Naked of leaf or shade, the earth baked in the long summer sun. In wintertime, torrents of savage rain tore into the soil, cutting it into deep gullies, washing whole fields away into the sea. And always, wherever there was a green thing growing, it was everywhere menaced by the sharp, poisonous, and insatiable tooth of the goat. To the goat herd, anything that grew was fair food for his flock. And such a goat herd was Vassos Mavrandonis. But to such village farmers as Nikos, the wandering goat was something that carried plague in its mouth. In half an hour, one flock could devastate a year's harvest.
Νίκο, Νίκο, δέποτσι ήρθαν κάποιες νίκες και τρώνε τις ελιές μας.
Βάστα του για μετά τον... Ενσώ, πάντα ποιος έμουνες έφερε Ολλάνδο δες σαν εσάρα. Άια παύρο έρημες, εφάετε μας τα σπαρτά μας, είναι αμόντουτα. Ποιος είναι ο Ολλάνδουδος ο άνθρωπος που τα φέρε τα μέσαρα. Ματιά κασού, αντρέπονται τίποτε πιο.
Small wonder that strife flared up between farmer and shepherd. Nikos spoke with the passion of one whose rage is sharpened by weeks of sweat in the fields. In Vassos was all the obstinacy and truculence of the lotus eater whose sleep has been rudely disturbed. But Nikos was not alone in his indignation, and the battle did not end there. The village called a meeting to settle the goat problem once and for all. There were two sides to the question, and the village heard them. For one thing, they said, the goat had always been there. The children were raised on its milk. Its flesh was roasted at weddings and festivals. It was a valuable animal. But others replied, the goat is a menace. Where it wanders at will, it poisons our fields and our crops. It must go. Then Nikos spoke. Who would spend a year of long days scraping the soil to grow food for Vassos goats? I would do better to throw my seed down the well and my wife and children after it. No, said the villagers, the crops must be protected. In the long run, it is not goat flesh, but the fertility of the village that matters. So it was decided to outlaw the goat altogether from the village area. Tethered goats only could remain. The graziers could keep sheep or settle down as farmers, but the free ranging of their goat flocks was abolished around the village. This did not go kindly with some of them. It did not go at all kindly with Vassos Mavrandonis. Vassos was a shepherd and not a farmer. He had a few poor fields, but he had no stomach to farm them. So, with his goats exiled from the village, he took them and headed for the forest, the one-time stronghold of the shepherds. Here, on the sharp ridges and slopes of the hills, grew the timber wealth of Cyprus, oak and pine and fir, and cedars more prolific and mighty than those of Lebanon. From here came timber for the fleets of the Venetians, and from here they took wood to build the Temple of Solomon. But the forests now were less mighty than they had been. Around the snow-capped peak of Mount Olympus, among the deep ravines and ice-blue streams, lay the villages of the shepherds whose flocks for years had fed off the buds and branches of the trees, had stunted the pines and cropped off the young seedlings before they could take hold and grow. They were rough, wild villages. They stood among the clouds of the hills, cut off from the plains and remote from the thought of husbandry. It was to one such village that Vassos came. For centuries, these villagers had existed by the flesh and feces of their flocks. Their songs were of sheep and goats, and their dances of feud and murder. But the lives of these shepherds were changing fast. Already their flocks were leaving the forest. For the forest was the wealth of the whole community, and the trees must be protected. In this stronghold of the shepherds, for years the kings of these hills, the authorities had begun, by patient persuasion and the buying up of flocks and grazing rights, to clear the area and to plant new trees that would grow straight and free from the goat's sharp tooth. Some of them resisted the change longer than others, but gradually the forest was cleared, and the shepherds began to settle down to new lives. Some became farmers. Some took to charcoal burning, for in an island where there is no coal, charcoal is one of the main fuels for the people in their homes and villages. Others became forest workers, clearing, pruning, transplanting the young trees, putting the forest back onto the bald, craggy slopes long desolated by neglect or fire. Some, for their sharp eyes, became forest fire guards. Perched on the higher peaks, they kept ceaseless watch for the first plumes of smoke that might threaten a priceless generation of cedars. Causes of fire are many, but the pitch pine torch of a disgruntled shepherd was still an all too common one. Vassos was a wild man, as there is one in every village. And now he had a grievance. If there was no room in the forest for his goats, then he would revenge himself in a way the forest would understand. There are many gaunt patches of hillsides, scorched black with fire, which show the thoughtless, impetuous spite of men like Vassos. For where there are few roads and sheer hillsides, a fire started in secret will go raging through these dry trees and spread out of all control, unless seen and smothered immediately. Thasos had liked the lazy shepherd's life. His goats had worked for him. He need do no more than lie in the shade while they fattened themselves on the trees and bushes around him. Now, for his folly, he would rest a while in the shade of the local jail,